Hello, everyone. Welcome to the A Train to Sedona broadcast. I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is also the name of a book I wrote, a memoir, about my journey to love and compassion, where I share successes and failures. I wrote it to have my voice be heard, but also to inspire your journey. You can purchase a signed copy on my website, lindamarsanico.com, on Buy the Book page. Also at retail and bookstores. If you want to read the first 7 pages for free, you can go to Amazon.com. I also have a free gift for you, the cheat sheet for high vibration living, 7 exercises to help you keep your vibration high, positive, and in the present moment, especially in this uncertain world. It's a great item to have in your toolkit. And you can download that on lindamarsanico.com. Now I have 2 disclaimers. One is that this broadcast does not establish a professional relationship. The second disclaimer is that the opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent Talk Radio New York City. Today, I have as my guest Stephanie McAuliffe. After a 27-year career on Wall Street, Stephanie is the founder and CEO of The Way of the Diamond Warrior. Stephanie speaks, writes, and teaches on the human condition and the impact of our internalized energetic patterns. As a personal transformation coach and energy healer, she deeply understands the impact of trauma held within the body and the importance to our vitality to clear and heal it. Stephanie is the author of 2 international best-selling books, The Impact of Silence, Self-Mastery Practices for Women, and The Message in the Bottle, Finding Hope and Peace Amidst the Chaos of Living with an Alcoholic. Welcome to the broadcast, Stephanie.
Thank you, Linda. I'm thrilled to be here with you today.
I'm as thrilled to have you. The first question I'm going to ask you is about the influences from your childhood, adolescence, young adulthood, which bring you to where you are today.
Oh my goodness. It can sometimes feel like a loaded question, and yet, as a synopsis, I grew up in multi-generational silencing of our words, of our feelings, of our emotions. There was an unspoken energy of command and control within my house, within my mother's house. I see it going multiple generations back.
Mm.
And it was one of, in some ways, felt a little bit hypocritical because there was the do as I say, not as I do.
Mm-hmm.
So I would see certain things that the adults would do, and yet we as kids would hear, no, we can't afford that. No, we can't do that. No, we don't have time. One of the big things now that I've written about and that I speak about and work with clients on is breaking the cycle of the generational patterns that were either spoken or unspoken. Because when we stand in really the truth of who we are versus a lot of it is buried within us because of these rules that we grew up with. And they were disguised as boundaries, but they're really rules. And part of it was to keep us safe. I understand that. And yet, as an adult, it's so important for us to give a voice to our story. And this is what I have really been working diligently on since before the end of my career on Wall Street. Because this is how we heal. When we have the awareness, when we see how the breadcrumbs fit together that go back generationally as well, we're able to break a pattern and then heal the energy. So in some ways, I've had to energetically divorce myself from my family because many of them still live within that old paradigm of obey your mother and father. I grew up with a God that was a man sitting on a cloud up above me, judging me and everything that I was doing. So again, it was a lot of fear and control that I finally said no to.
Can you say how you energetically divorced yourself or separated yourself from your family?
I I so when I married two alcoholics. I grew up around functional alcoholism and multi-generational sexual abuse and the silencing of it. So there are many layers to this story. And I went to Al-Anon for many, many years, which is for families of alcoholics. And I even I started when I was married to my first alcoholic, and then really got into the program during my second marriage. And after the divorce, there was a moment that was a huge catalyst for me. In New Jersey, there was a day of joint meetings between AA and Al-Anon. And I went to an AA meeting because I had never been to one. And a man came in and told the story of how when he was a teenager, his father had forced him to do heroin with him, which is horrible. No parent should force their child to do any kind of drugs or anything like that. In the session right after that, which I led, which was an adult children of alcoholics, the man came in and told the exact same story. And the light bulb went off for me because I saw how stuck people are in their stories. I saw how stuck I was in my story. And the box that I had put myself in was very valuable. It gave me comfort in knowing some of the toxic behavior and codependency I had grew up around and that I was raised in. It was then that I started doing energy work. So I took Reiki 1. I went to sound bowl healings. I went to
Mhm.
energy healing classes. I worked my way up through, I'm a Holy Fire 3 Karuna Reiki master. And my work extends beyond that. Energy work completed the sentence. That is meant to be a metaphor
Mhm.
because I had done a lot of personal transformation work and still felt stuck. As I cleared the energetic blocks out of my body, it was like the final frontier of freeing myself so that I could energetically divorce myself from the patterns and the cycles that some of which came through in my DNA.
Mm.
Some I
Amazing.
pick, right? And some we pick up in our childhood. Up through the age of 8, we are like sponges. We're absorbing everything around us. There are studies that show that young children can smell fear in their mothers. There are other studies that are looking at war veterans and how anxiety is passed through the sperm. So it's not just, the environment we grew up around. It is also clearing the energy that came through no fault of our own and sometimes through no fault of our parents, because it's the things that they picked up that they passed along to us. And this is why energy work is such a big component
Mhm.
in the work that I continue to do for myself and the work I do with my clients.
So you use your energy skills, Reiki and the list of that you just described to work on yourself. I do the same thing. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's wonderful that we can do that.
Yes.
Um, and it is very effective. It's another level, a deeper level of healing, which is essential because we're not just a body, we're much more complex than that.
We are. And in my second book, The Impact of Silence, I talk about how it's like we have a layer cake inside of us. And we cover up what we don't want to see with frosting. And yet when we melt the frosting, and we have many, many layers. And this is why it can feel like sometimes like I've done all this work on this thing. Why is it back? It's because we're ready to clear the deeper layer.
Mhm.
And spirit, universe, consciousness would not bring it into our world if we weren't ready to heal it and work through it and let it go. So when we allow ourselves to melt that frosting and basically eat the layer of cake,
I
we can.
remember. Go. I think you want to say
No,
something.
I was just going to say that this is how we free ourselves
Yes.
of what's come up for us.
Some years ago, I had done a lot of work on my relationship with my mother. And I thought, well, I've cleared it. And I went on a retreat, and there was a woman there who triggered something else about my mother. And I thought, well, I'm on a road here and it's not complete. And yet I was able to work through the issues that came up. And it's a continuing challenge and really a beautiful path, as you say. We're given these situations to help us grow, not to punish us, because we're ready finally for the deeper and deeper levels of what presents itself.
Right. And like, haven't we already punished ourselves enough? Like when we heal, one of the biggest parts is on self-forgiveness. And we can forgive a situation, we can forgive a person. We need to be compassionate with ourselves. But I wanted to go back to your point about triggers. Triggers are a gift.
Yes.
They truly are when we lean in and we get curious rather than sitting in judgment. It's amazing what can come through for us. And it isn't always easy. Personally, I've shed many tears. I've gone through many boxes of Kleenex. I have many journals. And yet those are parts of the transformation because writing is a somatic experience. We get to move the energy out through our arm, through our hand, through the pen onto the paper, as well as crying or screaming or yelling or having a conversation in a room by yourself. There are multiple things that we can do on our own in addition to working with a healer to help us give a voice to what wants to be seen and heard.
Yes, writing is very helpful. When I write my blogs or when I'm writing anything, it's in with a pencil, usually a pencil or a pen on loose leaf paper. And it's a wonderful connection, as you say. And then it goes on to the computer after that. So it's a handy thing.
Yeah, and it can be really powerful if you're not able to have a conversation with someone. For instance, my second husband was actively drinking when we divorced. And there were things I wanted to say to him I was never able to. Through the course of a couple of days, I wrote him a 30-page letter that I then burned. And yet in there were some nuggets of wisdom. It's like, oh, that's what that was. So it allows us to move out what it is that we wanted to say. We don't need the other person's presence nor cooperation to do this for ourselves.
Journaling is masterful.
Truly.
Now, I know we're getting ready for a break.
Mhm.
And what I would like to do when we come back is to discuss the role of spirituality in your life.
Beautiful.
Okay, so we're going to take a break, and listeners do come back to hear these wonderful nuggets that will be produced after this break.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the A Train to Sedona broadcast. I'm Linda Marsanico with my guest, Stephanie McAuliffe. Now, Stephanie, we were on the verge. We asked listeners to come back to hear you respond to the question of the role of spirituality in your life.
Right now, it's everything. And yet, and this is something that I've worked through in multiple layers, and another one has come through of late. My senior year of high school, I lost all connection to God, to spirituality. I wanted nothing to do with my life. I did not want to be in my body. And I found multiple ways, including a lot of drugs, to not be present. And it's been a healing journey of coming back to not only trusting myself, but trusting God. And when I say God, it is not the God who was up on the white cloud judging me. That looks like Santa Claus, but isn't. It is the greater universe consciousness. It is the Divine Mother. And it's taken time to get to this space of feeling like I belong in the universe. And we all do. We all belong. And yet, through trauma, we lose this connection. And I see it in so many people that we will do whatever we can do to not be present. Call it distraction, call it disassociation, call it addiction, call it whatever you want. Now, in my personal situation, we had moved to Florida for my sophomore and junior years of high school. And I was finally away from my stepbrother, who had abused me for 4 years. And I was finding my way, and I was away from that whole dynamic. And at Christmas time during my junior year of high school, my ex-stepfather came down, and he and my mother announced that they were remarrying. And I felt like the world was just pulled out. Everything was pulled out from underneath me. My grades went from A's to C's. I started doing some really hard drugs versus partying. And when we moved to Massachusetts, within 2 weeks, I found the kids who were doing some really hard drugs. By all rights, I probably should either be dead or living in a van by the river right now. And yet there was always an intestinal fortitude within me that kept me going. And in a way, the thrashing that I did in my senior year of high school kept me from feeling that pain until I was ready to feel it. So it in an odd way, in a paradox, it can be protective for us. And I've written about this in one of my blogs of sometimes the addiction that we hold on to, that box that we crawl into, provides a safety net for us until we were ready to face what was so painful that we stepped into the addiction in the first place. Wall Street was also part of that as well. I found my worth through my work. And then within a year of each other, my second marriage and my 27-year career on Wall Street ended. And all of a sudden I was left with all of this space. And it was like being a 5-year-old being asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? I couldn't answer the question. And yet the first coach I started working with, and this is why it's so important to work with coaches and different coaches, because they will bring different things, just like different healers. I was asked the question on the first group call, how do you want to feel? And that question shook me to my core because I realized I wasn't able to answer it. And it cracked me wide open. It has been the journey and the process of healing since that call that I have come to this space of, I trust God. I trust the universe. I trust myself. I've stepped into the space of love and belonging, where if we think of Maslow's hierarchy, there's the physiological, which many of us have, the physiological layer, and then there is safety. With love and belonging, he had trust. I actually think trust needs to be down with safety, because if we don't have trust, we don't feel safe. And if we don't feel safe, we don't have trust. And this has been my journey of coming back to myself, coming back to my heart. So now spirituality is everything.
Beautifully stated.
Thank you. It took a while to get here. And this is where it doesn't matter how long it takes. It doesn't matter when you start. It doesn't matter how old you are. And hopefully this conversation can be a catalyst for people to say yes to themselves.
Indeed. I have another question for you. You mentioned being on Wall Street, and the world knows Wall Street. And the A train, the 2 train, all the trains, and many of them in New York City go to Wall Street. How did you go from being an executive on Wall Street to being a personal transformation coach and energy healer?
I sat for a while in that space after I had been in project and program management. So I helped the business run, either through commodities exchanges or some of the big financial firms that I worked at. And when my last big program ended, I looked around and said, okay, I just helped to co-manage an $85 million 4-year global transformation program. Do I want to do this again? And in the summer of 2016, I gave myself, quote unquote, permission to leave Wall Street. And this is when I had already been into energy work. I received the download of, you're going to write a book. I was connected with a publisher, and this is how The Message in the Bottle, Finding Hope and Peace Amidst the Chaos of Living with an Alcoholic was written. I started with just sitting at my computer and writing. Somewhere on my hard drive, I have a 75,000 word document that I think about 3 paragraphs of it went into my first book. I needed to purge. And I thought my mission was to not simply, but simply work with families of alcoholics. Yet many of them just want to focus on the alcoholic, and they think, well, if they stop drinking, everything will be perfect. Those of us who have lived around alcohol, active or functional alcoholism, need just as much recovery, and sometimes more, than the alcoholic. So I started looking more deeply, and that was around the time where I was at that joint meeting between AA and Al-Anon, where the light bulb went off of, this is bigger than a bread box. This is bigger than I think it is. So I started to really explore energy work. I worked with world-renowned mediums. I took courses. I dove into my own journey. So it's been an evolution of, and I now see how people I worked with on Wall Street were stuck in some of the same paradigms that I was, of if you didn't feel heard when you were a child, you might be one of the people who feels like they need to over explain or defend or write big long emails to justify every single point that you want to make. And a lot of this is subconscious. So when I look back at the people I worked with and how I was, this is why healing these energetic patterns and clearing not just what we took on, but also the ancestral rules and obligations is so important. Because when we do this, this is where we stand in our true power of who we are. We don't necessarily have to change anything around us, because as we shift, the world around us shifts. So through this journey, I've seen the bigger picture of the broader impact of how much we and ourselves have been silenced.
Yes, I hear you. I'm a little distracted because we have a message from a listener, my good friend Gwendolyn Green Lindbergh. Yay! Good. Thanks for listening in, Gwen. Silence is, silence can be golden, but silence to avoid speaking the truth makes us ill in some way. And we have many layers. You talk about the layer cake. We are so complex. When Creator designed us, my goodness, we are quite a design. Everything is interconnected. It's just beautiful. So speaking truth is something that I feel is one of my goals in every relationship. Having said that, sometimes to be kind or appropriate, silence can be very beneficial. But it always has to be weighed. I talk about assertiveness and choosing when I'm going to become assertive, because assertion is so important. And if I'm not feeling so energetic, I might want to let something pass for the moment. But I once did a blog and I said, what can't you leave home without? Your keys, this, that. I said, forget about the keys, forget about this. Don't leave home without assertion. So it's an important skill. Now we are going to take a break, but when we come back, Stephanie, I'd like to discuss the biggest challenge in this transition, this leap you made from 26 years on Wall Street to being a transformational coach, an energy healer, and we'll produce some nuggets again.
Beautiful. I look forward to continuing our conversation after the break.
So let's take a break now.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the A Train to Sedona. I'm Linda Marsanico with my guest, Stephanie McAuliffe. So, Stephanie, I'd like to ask, what was the biggest challenge during the transition from your 26-year career on Wall Street to being a coach and an energy healer?
Trusting myself. There were so many messages in my youth, and many of us are taught this, to not trust ourselves, to look to someone or something outside of us to give us the answer, to give us the confirmation, to give us the validation that we seek. So trust in myself, of my message, that I have something valuable and worthwhile to bring to the world. Because my career on Wall Street was all about producing something, and then you get validation. And I did very well. I was a senior director at the end of my career. I implemented many things for the business. And yet what I was implementing, I was given direction on, or I would work with the business to gain what it was that they wanted. So it was a model of production and reward. Stepping into this role as a coach and a healer, we need to trust ourselves, the core of who we are and what it is that we're bringing, that not everyone is going to get us. And that's okay. It's knowing that I haven't done all of this work to not share the wisdom that has been gained. And part of that trust has also been one of trusting that I've been given this as a channel for spirit. And had spirit not trusted me, I would not have the wisdom that I have gained, especially with this work around the energy of boundaries and the generational, the new layers, the different layers of the energies that we've internalized. So it's been one of, I've walked my talk. Everything that I speak about, everything that I teach, everything that I do with clients, I've done for myself. Because in some ways I needed to prove to myself and for myself that it was valid. And this was another way that I brought the trust back within and for myself, so that I didn't need the validation from the outside world. Because another big component of this has been moving beyond the family paradigm. And whereas we as children are taught to look to our family for validation of who we are in the world, the big part of this journey has been that energetic divorce from people who don't support the work that it's not that they don't support me. They don't support the work I'm doing, because then they need to look in the mirror for themselves.
That's very powerful to bring it home and to discuss, to understand how this very challenging work that we do could be threatening to other people. And as you said before, and I totally agree, people need to be ready, and we're not to judge. There's no judgment. It's when we're ready. And eventually, I do believe that we will all get to the same place. It just takes, we're on our own path. And I think of one of my favorite stories from Neil Donald Walsh's Conversations with God. Neil says, I don't really want to deal with this issue. And God says, Neil, take 10,000 lifetimes. And Neil says, oh, I'm going to do it now. So it's a matter of when we decide, as we are not judged.
And I think sometimes there's a point where we can say, I'm not ready yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then it will come back around when we are ready. It's similar to me completely denouncing God and my relationship with God at the Thanksgiving table of my senior year of high school to say I am an atheist, because no loving God would put me in that situation that I was living in. And yet it had nothing to do with God. It was the people I was living with, who I understand the deeper aspects in the story to that. And yet there were certain aspects of that that I wasn't ready to heal until recently. And that's okay. It spirit brings us what we need when we're ready for it, and never before. Even if it feels like a huge thing, we can say not yet. And when we're ready, it comes.
I would like to shift a little bit to a very important part of your work, that which you label big T trauma and little t trauma. So, would you talk about the difference?
Absolutely. And what's coming to me is to discuss sexual abuse. The act of the abuse is a big T trauma. We have been people have been violated in ways that no one should ever be violated, even if it's improper touching, which I experienced when I was 6. And then there were I've experienced multiple instances and multiple years of this type of abuse. The little T trauma is the fact that I didn't get support from my mother. She knew it was happening. There were other people within the family that knew it was happening and did nothing to protect me. Or I went to go live with my grandmother for 2 summers to get me away from my stepbrother. And yet for the school year, I was back under the same roof. So this is where the small T trauma is the silencing of the impact and the effect on us. And that's what causes illness and sickness. And I truly believe a big reason why there's so much addiction, because we don't want to be in our body. We don't want to feel the pain. We have not been shown how to feel it. We have not been given the ability to bring a voice to it. And so the small T trauma are more of the energetic and psychological effects, many times from the big T trauma, that we can focus on the physical things that we can see. So in my senior year of high school, I had a really bad case of bronchitis. And I was living in an area where storms would come in and we lost power. So there was a lot of focus on my physical healing, and yet there was no discussion about what was happening, the energetics in the 4 walls and under the roof of that household.
That's so painful.
It can be. And so through therapy, I dealt with a lot of it. And yet I go back to the energy work, help to clear those energetic blocks.
Yeah.
There are studies that show that most of our disease is caused from these internalized traumas. So Dr. Joe Dispenza says less than 30% of disease is genetic. Bruce Lipton says it's 7% or less.
7?
7. So it is our environment. It's the food we eat. It's the things we ingest. It's how we don't care for ourselves, our lack of movement. A lot of it, I believe, is the energetics. It's the things that we continue to swallow that we have not processed. It's really pretty astounding when we look at, and even the CDC, when you look at the ACEs study, adverse childhood experiences, and the impact on us from the perspective of disease, there's a reason why cancer rates are so high. There's a reason why heart disease and high blood pressure is so high.
Yes.
There's direct correlation to our adverse childhood experiences, to the physical ailments we experience as adults.
There was a pediatrician who did a TED Talk on that. She had been seeing children come in with all these illnesses, so she did research.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my clients wrote to me to tell me to watch it because it described his childhood. It's very powerful, and it's a very good thing that we're seeing some research to support what we feel is appropriate and true.
Yeah. And that's why in my second book, I talk about the science and the energetics and give invitations to the reader to go deeper into their own story, because when we see how these breadcrumbs are connected, say, oh, that's where that comes from. I don't have to hold on to it. I don't have to own it anymore. And I can let this go. Like, I don't have to carry this energetic bag of rocks anymore.
It sounds uplifting to hear you say it, and the energy around the statement is very positive and actually spectacular. I can let that go. I don't have to live with that. I can let that go. I can let go of my story.
We can. And this is why I do the work that I do. Because it's not just about the alcoholism. It's the layers that are underneath it. And the importance of healing those layers. That is so important for our individual sovereignty and freedom.
That's quite a worthy prize to seek. It's a goal that can propel us through the challenging work that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
There's quite a prize awaiting. I can tell you from personal experience.
We are the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes. We are the ones we've been waiting for.
Absolutely.
Yes. Now, I know that we're coming to a break. It's a couple of minutes. So I want to wait until we get back from the break to talk about, this is very important. There is no story that can't be healed, because some people think I can never get rid of this, I'm beyond healing, and we'll talk about that. But since we have a minute, can you tell us about your free gift?
Yes, so it is 3 guided meditations that one connects us back with joy. Another one is I am safe. And the third is an alchemy bowl meditation to help clear out your energy centers and just sit for 15 minutes and relax, where we don't have to do anything. It's an opportunity where you get to just be, which is a gift in and of itself to you. So I am safe. It's connecting with joy, which is inherently ours, yet through traumas, we lose our connection to it. Then we get to breathe.
Well, with that, Stephanie, let's take a break and tell our listeners that we're going to be discussing that there is no story that can't be healed. And I'm quoting you. Let's take a break now.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the A Train to Sedona broadcast. I'm Linda Marsanico. Stephanie McAuliffe is here with me. There's a very important statement that's being made today because sometimes people can feel that they've been so traumatized they cannot let it go. We're talking about Stephanie's statement that there is no story that can't be healed. Stephanie, would you share your thoughts about this, your experiences?
I was so attached to my stories that they kept me connected with the exact thing I didn't want anymore. That I was a victim of sexual abuse multiple times, going back to being an infant. That I was a victim of growing up with functional alcoholism, of silencing, of all these things of why I was the way that I was, the layers of my cake. I finally got tired of telling the story and of feeling like I was in that box that I had created for myself. So when we get to the point of, I don't want to tell this story anymore. I don't want to be defined by these labels anymore. I am ready to let go of that energetic bag of rocks. It's like the door will open up for us to step through. So we can hold on to anger. And there's a great quote by Buddha that says, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. The other person has moved on with their life. Whether they are dealing with it or not is none of our business. It's interesting, I wrote a blog post a number of years ago. In a dream, my stepbrother came to me asking for absolution. And I said, it's not for me to absolve you. That's between you and God. I have forgiven you. I don't hold any anger towards you or ill will because I now have a better understanding of your background and where you came from and why what happened between us happened. When I chose to let go of that, I freed myself. So, and the blog post is up on my website. Absolution, if we think we can absolve someone of something, we're actually putting ourselves on a pedestal up above them. Versus when we are in a victim mode, we've put someone else on a pedestal above us. No one is above anybody else. There are people who have different skills. There are people who have different abilities or may have been voted into or put into a position of power. It doesn't mean they actually have power over us. So when I say there is no story that can't be healed, when we choose to say, I am done with this in all aspects, the door opens and we can free ourselves on whole new levels.
The open door is quite a reality and a metaphor. There's a book, I don't remember, it's a small book that Christ says, I am the open door. So if we want to say that the universe is the open door, or my letting go of this, I'm getting out of this box. I'm letting go. I'm going through the door. It's a powerful intention. And it has an energy, and it's the first tip in my book having the intention to be on the spiritual path, and then the second, taking responsibility. These are very important attitudes to have. I'm going to open that door. And then we take, I think of the Wonder Woman power pose like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the new Wonder Woman has wristbands and people are shooting at her. So you think of criticisms and people disagreeing in vitriolic terms. Just be a powerful warrior. So that brings me to ask you, where did the name Diamond Warrior come from?
It was a download. And if we think of our heart is like a diamond. Through trauma, through trying to protect ourselves, we block our heart. We don't allow our own light to shine. There's a phrase on my website that says, achieving peace is an act of defiance. We are defying the old rules. We can become our own warrior and say no to the old rules, to say no to the old paradigms, to say no to the old way of being. And as we remove and clear these layers out from around our heart, and I have a whole process that I take people through, we allow the diamond that is our heart to shine. And yeah, the phrase that when I think of the way, it goes back to, Jesus, but this is a spiritual journey. And we all, being diamond warriors, allow ourselves to shine.
And that's an important nugget. It's very powerful to know that we have. I think of the redwood tree. It's about 1,000 feet tall. If you bring it back, you bring it to the seed that was that huge redwood tree. And so we have everything that we need, as the redwood tree does, to grow to spectacular heights. And the heart is very powerful. It is said that, as we meditate and our heart softens, that the energy precedes us, it is behind us, and people feel that. And that is what shifts the earth, the people in it, our looking at ourselves to heal self, to be compassionate and loving and forgiving and all of that.
Yeah. And I'm thinking of, we can sometimes not see the sun because of clouds, and yet the sun is always there. And when the clouds part, the light comes in, and it's like opening that door. And sometimes it is going into 12-step, and then, or therapy, or a group, or a coach. We open multiple doors for ourselves on this healing journey. And each time we're saying yes to ourselves, and we get to peel back. There's someone that instead of using the analogy of the onion, she uses the analogy of the artichoke. Because as we peel back all of the leaves, we get to the heart. We get to our heart. So there's a purpose of trying to go to the center. It's not just to peel things away and throw them away. Yes, we can send that energy off and be done with it. And yet, it's coming back to us.
I think that gives people hope to hear what you've just said, that there is hope. And when we're ready, we do the work. But there's no judgment. There's just, I'm not ready yet, or I'm going to open that door.
And it's finding a safe place. So I've had clients who have come to me who have shared things where they've never given a voice to it before. And they know they're in a safe space where they can do that because there is no judgment. I've done enough things to myself. I've got nothing to judge. We do what we do, and this is a big journey of self-forgiveness.
Well, this has been a glorious conversation, Stephanie. as we have said prior to this broadcast, we have there's a synergy in our approaches and our energy. So I'm so grateful to have you here. How can people reach you?
The best way is via my website, which is wayofthediamondwarrior.com. If you put a /connect on the end of that, there are different ways that people can connect in all the different ways and socials and sign up for my newsletter and explore. There's a lot of resources on my website.
And where can they purchase your book, your two books?
They're both on Amazon, and from the /Way of the Diamond Warrior /connect, there are links to both of my books as well.
And are you planning any workshops?
I am. The week after next, I am doing a free workshop on the conundrum of boundaries. And the Energy of Boundaries 8-week program begins on April 28th. And those will be up on my website in the next day or so.
Okay, listeners, you know how to get in touch with Stephanie. Thank you again.
Thank you. This has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation today.
So next week, listeners, my guest is Dr. Enolia Harris Pedro, a New Yorker who now lives in Angola, Africa. So do stay tuned next Wednesday at 12 noon. Parting is sweet sorrow. Bye for now.